Hello everyone, welcome to the class of business environment. So far we know what is environmental scanning and why it is required to be done, right? So basically you know that environmental scanning is a process used in strategic planning that assists a company in risk management, right? So basically it involves that environmental scanning involves considering all the factors of the business climate which influence a company's business operations. Now for that purpose, there are some techniques which can be used for scanning the environment or for scanning the factors which are available in the business environment. First is SWOT analysis. Now talking about SWOT analysis, we covered it in the last class. That stands for SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities and threats. So we know that how it is conducted, and SW are related to the organization and opportunity and threats are related to the macro environment, right? So this we have covered in the last class. After that, next which comes is ETOP. ETOP means Environmental Threat Opportunities Profile. It is an acronym which is used. It is a universal acronym actually. So environmental threat opportunities and profile analysis, which means in this you make a matrix, you prepare a matrix in which on the left side you take all the factors and on the right side you see the impact. How does it impact and what is the degree of impact? The nature of impact, how much impact it will be making on your business operations. For this, let's discuss it. See, this is a kind of ETOP matrix which is prepared. On the left side, we have economic factors, international factor, market factor, political, regulatory, supplier, technological, all kinds of factors which are existing in the business environment, right? And then on the right side, there are two columns. One is nature of impact, whether it has a direct impact, it has an indirect impact. In case it has direct impact, then will it have very large impact or very intense impact, or it will just give a touching, surfing on just touching the surface, a very light impact. So that is the nature of impact and the impact of each sector, how it will be impacting on the business operations. Kindly switch off your mics. Let's try to understand it with the help of an example. Suppose this is an ETOP for a motorbike company. Motorbike company means if it wants to see, there is a customers are preferring nowadays motorbike which are more fashionable and easy to ride and durable. That means it is a kind of favorable impact. Favorable in the sense that people are preferring bikes because it gives them a fashion statement or it is easy to ride. So that's why that society viewpoint is changing, and this is kind of a positive and favorable impact on the motorbike company. Talking about the political, there is no significant factor. See, upside arrows always represent favorable impact. The sideways arrow, it impacts, there is no, it shows there is no impact, there is no significant influence. And downside arrows always represent the negative impact on the business operation or of that particular factor. So economic, if the urban consumers are growing affluent, their earning capacity has increased, they are earning more now, and there is good export potential. That means economically these factors are giving a positive impact on the motorbike company, on the motorbike industry. Regulatory, if two-wheel industry is a thrust area for exports, government has come up with some rules or regulation or some law has been passed that this year they'll be exporting, they'll be providing some kind of subsidies to the for the exporters who will be exporting two-wheeler. So it is a kind of positive thing which is going to occur in future, and it will bear a favorable impact on the motorbike industry, right? So regulatory also, that factor is impacting you positively. Then market, industrial growth rate is expected from 10 to 12% per year. For motorbike growth rate is 40%, which is largely unsaturated demand. See, there are two kinds of demand, saturated demand and unsaturated demand. Saturated demand means anything when it reaches to a threshold कि उसके बाद there is no scope something can be done. We talk about two markets, no? Saturated market and unsaturated market. Saturated market is already fully developed market. There is no more scope of any new introduction or any new invention or any new changes which you can expect in that market. And unsaturated market is that which is still in the infancy stage, which is still developing. So there are lots of opportunities. There is lots of there are avenue of good scope in that. So that is your unsaturated. So when unsaturated demand is there, that means demand has not reached to that threshold. Still people are demanding it, and this demand will keep on increasing with the time. So if it is seeing a growth rate of 40% in future, that means market is like going to grow like anything, right? There will be a sudden surge in the market for the demand of the motorbikes, which is again a positive impact for the motorbike industry, right? This is your ETOP. So this is another technique which can be used for scanning the environment. First was SWOC, then ETOP, then third one was forecasting. What do you mean by the word forecasting? Forecasting means predicting, right? Foreseeing the future. So it means nothing but predicting future events and analyzing their impact on plans. Organizations, they analyze the environment by applying various techniques to forecast government policies, how government policies will be changing or whether there will be a change or not, what will be the sale, what will be the technological developments coming up in the future, and then use that information to formulate plans and strategies. That is a kind of another forecasting in which a panel of experts sit together and then they try to predict how things can go in future, and then they collect that information and then they try to formulate their plans and strategies of the organization on the basis of that information. So that is another technique which can be adopted for environmental scanning. Other than that, the fourth one was verbal and written information. Remember, verbal and written information. Verbal and written information means gathering the information. Verbal means when you are collecting any information by hearing, right? You getting to hear it. You can collect your verbal information through radios, televisions, workforce, or any outsiders, right? Outsider means your outsiders can be your consumers, your suppliers, your bankers, your stakeholders, anybody. So that is a kind of verbal information you can collect. Then another one is written information can be collected through the newspapers, magazines, journals, and other articles which are getting in a printed form, right? So this, it informs the changes in the environment and it prepares the organization to incorporate those changes in their plans and strategies so that they don't get obsolete. They are well updated with the changing environment. And the fifth one is management information system. Now, when we are talking about management information system, first of all, let's understand what is this MIS. MIS is a formal method of making available to management the accurate and timely information which is necessary to facilitate the decision making process, right? So koi bhi acute and timely information when it is provided to the management so that they can do a effective decision making. They are to facilitate them in the decision making process and enable the organization's planning, controlling, operational functions to be carried out effectively. If you are aware, there are management functions: planning, organizing, directing, supervising, coordinating, and controlling, right? So MIS is a formal method which provides the information on all the levels of management so that they can take the decision and it can facilitate them in all the management functions so that all the functions are carried out swiftly and effectively, right? So this is another thing which another technique which can be used because it provides you timely, accurate, concise, complete, and the relevant information based on the computer technology. Because generally in this you prepare a database, you collect all the information, and through that it is presented, right? And in this you tell these are the present changes in the environment happening, and these are the expected future changes which might occur. So this is another technique which can be used. So with this, we finish our environmental scanning techniques. After that, the new topic which I would like to start today is new economic policy of 1991. Okay, it was also new industrial policy of 1991. It is not that something, this was the first industrial policy which was introduced in Indian economy. Before this also there were number of policies which had come, but this policy is treated as a milestone in Indian economy because it changed the face of Indian economy, because there were some major decisions taken under this committee and which were implemented. First, let's understand what is industrial policy. First of all, the industrial policy means the procedures, the principles, policies, rules, and regulations which control the industrial undertaking of the country and pattern of industrialization. That means all the procedures, rules, regulations which are formulated to control the industries in one particular country and what kind of pattern is to be followed, that is your industrial policy. So basically, it explains the approach of the government in context to the development of industrial sector. See, if your government is aiming more on rural industries and giving less focus on in urban industries, so that would be reflected in the industrial policy of that country, right? And that would show up that what kind of government you have. Government is taking which approach, that it is focusing on rural area, or it is focusing on urban area, or it is focusing on large scale industries, whether it is focusing on small scale industries. So that industrial policy, when you go through the industrial policy of any economy, you get to know the approach of the government of that particular country. Then question comes that why do we need industrial policy? Industrial policy is needed to create a high wage system, productivity increase करने के लिए, so that you can bring some more creativity and innovation. You have a high investment economy based on diversity of ownership. Diversity of ownership means they can be public ownership, they can be private ownership, they can be a mix of both. In private, again, you have the domestic ownership and the foreign ownership, right? So these are the, to work on these factors, we need a good IP, industrial policy. Now let's talk about the industrial policies which have first industrial policy resolution which came in the existence was in 1948, or this is also called as the 1948 industrial policy. Okay, this was the first industrial policy in Indian economy. And second one was in 1956. But see, our constitution was formed in 1950. So if somebody asks you when was the first industrial policy, which was the first industrial policy in India, you'll say it 1948, correct. But which one was the first industrial policy which was passed in parliament? Then answer will be 1956, right? Because constitution was formed after the 1948. So the first policy which got passed through parliament was 1956, not 1948. But the first policy which was formed was 1948, right? Is that clear? After that, there was industrial policy resolution 1973, then 77, then in 80 also. But the most important is which, attracts our attention is in 1991. So let's discuss it in detail. What is this new industrial policy 1991? It was passed on 24 July 1991 in Lok Sabha, and it was under the Minister of State of Industry that time was P.J. Kurian, okay, who declared the industrial policy 1991. This was a kind of curtain raiser because there were many restrictions going on that time in the industry. So under that licensing policy, this was the time that when Indian economy was considered till 1991, Indian economy was considered as a closed economy. After this policy, it got converted into an open economy. Many doors were opened for the foreigners, also foreign investment, foreign technology, and for our exporters also, right? So after that's why it is important, because the Indian economy got converted from the closed economy to open economy after this policy. Now, what are the objectives of new economic policies? First objective was to liberalize the economy. See, it was a very closed and very, stringent economy. It was too regulated. Sometimes we say, no, that if regulations are too much, it suppresses your creativity and innovativeness and your growth. So the same thing was going on with the Indian economy. There was too stringent laws. So there was a need, there was a requirement to liberalize the economy, to make it little free economy, little open economy. Then another objective was to increase employment opportunities, then to encourage foreign investment. Because before that, everybody was talking about that Nehruian model, that only our country thinks, not foreign things to be accepted, nothing, the involvement should not be there. But here, that change was accepted and it was required that unless we allow the foreign investment in our country, our economy cannot reach on the global level. Then to make public sector more competitive, obviously public sector was performing badly. All the public sector units, wherever the ownership was with public sector, it was poorly performing. Then to liberalize the economy from various government regulations, as we talked about it, those stringent laws, rules, regulations needed to be liberalized a little. Then to encourage for expansion of production capacity. Production capacity, if a plant has a capacity of 1000 and it is making just a production of 100 units per hour, so that is a kind of, down the line it will become a sick unit, because it is not producing at the full capacity. So that's why there was a need to encourage the production of capacity, and then to increase exports and liberalize imports, right? So these were some of the objectives. Now let's talk about some important silent features of new industrial policy 1991. First one is to liberalize industrial policy of licensing. Licensing in the sense, what was happening under this policy, with the exception of 18 industries, licensing system was removed from all other industries. Earlier, what was the same? All the industries which were operating, they needed some kind of license from the government to operate. Otherwise, they were not allowed. So that was a kind of cumbersome and unnecessary tedious process, right? That you have to go through the licensing procedure and all. So during this industrial policy, it was action was taken that except the 18 industries, no other industries need a license. They can open and they can do whatever like they want to do. So industries which were engaged in manufacturing goods, which are only those industries which are harmful to the environment and industry, they needed some kind of uh, license. Or those who are producing some luxury goods for affluent people, they needed some kind of license. Other than that, all were made free from that. Then second was localization policy. Localization policy, it was said that those industries which are situated in cities where the population is less than 1 million. If the population is less than 1 million, that industrial permission from the government is not required. If you are setting up an industry in a city where your population is less than 1 million, then you don't need any permission from the government to start any industry, right? But in cities having a population of more than 1 million, then those industries needed to be established either away from at least 25 kilometers away from those city boundaries, or they needed some special permission, right? Except the electronics or computer and other pollution free industries, because they don't create any kind of pollution. So anyway, they don't fall under this category of localization. Then talking about the foreign investment, in during this policy, provisions were made that foreign investors can invest up to 51% in the equity shares of any Indian company, right? Earlier, this limit was limited up to 40%. Before this, it was only confined to 40%, that more than 40% any foreign investor cannot invest in. But now it has increased further, right? So then workers' participation in management. Workers' participation in management in the sense that, workers should not be just treated as employees. They should be given due respect and due involvement, participation. They can make a decision, they can be involved in decision making, they can be involved in other activities which are happening in the, so that they feel they are part of the organization, that they also have some say in the organization. So that should be encouraged and that should be promoted. So workers interest, whether it is related to their other than their participation, their benefits which they get from the employers, those were also focused upon, those were also worked upon. Then role of public sector. See, here role of public sector before 1991, every mostly things were under the control of public, and those were underperforming, right? So those public undertakings which were not doing well that time, but which had enough chances or there was a room for improvement, those should be reconstituted. It was decided during that undertakings which were facing constant financial problems or other kind of financial crises, those were referred to the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, BIFR. BIFR stands for Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, so that which it will be fixed by the those companies which are going through some crisis, those can be fixed by the government. Then there were some changes in the MRTP Act. What is MRTP Act? Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. That means in the Industrial Policy 1991, major changes were made in MRTP Act. Those companies, it was said that company, before that, competition was getting suppressed somehow. But in the MRTP Act or in 1991, it was saying that competition should be encouraged rather than suppressing it. So companies having investment of rupees 100 crore or more, they will not be required to take prior government approvals or permissions for opening any new subdivision, or if they are planning to expand their business, right? If they are having an investment of more than 100 crores. But those who were falling below the limit, those they had to take some kind of government permission for expanding their business or for opening their branches at different places. So it was a kind of giving, reducing those the tedious process which they had to go through, the number of steps involved in the processes, so that if less and less approvals and permissions are required, it becomes a conducive environment for the businesses to operate. They can do whatever they feel like without much restrictions on them. Then the investment limit which was there, that was also removed. So there were many small factors which had got removed during this in the Industrial Policy 1991. Then the next one is creation of productive capacity. Creation of productive capacity in the sense that to increase the productive capacity of new industries, all the administrative controls and administrative nagging from time to time, their involvement, they poking their nose in between the operations of the business, that were removed. So that industrialist or the businessmen, they just had to inform the government of doing their whatever the new operations they are starting, or if they are increasing their production capacity, they had to just inform it rather than going through their prior permission or prior approval was not required. Then foreign technology. Foreign technology in the sense we talk about ki before 1991, if somebody wanted to import some technology from abroad, then they had to go through the number of steps, and then sometimes it was permitted to them, and sometimes in the end it was not even they were not even allowed to import such technology. But in 1991 it was decided that no prior permission from government will be required in importing foreign technology up to a limit of 1 crore rupees. If you are importing a foreign technology which involves investment of only 1 crore, then no permission is required. Okay. Then Indian companies were also made free to negotiate their terms and conditions with foreign collaborators. They could collaborate with the foreign investors and whatever foreign companies in the matter of technology transfers, right? They could exchange the technical know-how. They were collaborating with the foreign companies, and they were also part of that, and they could exchange. The indigenous technology could be exchanged or could be shared with them, and they could also ask for their foreign technology here. So these were some of the silent features of new economic policy. Now its impact, its critical evaluation will continue tomorrow in tomorrow's class. So that's all for today. If you have any questions, you can put up your queries.